Hello YouTube, my name is Tyler, and this is your Movie Fix. Today we're going to be talking about Pan. Pan is directed by Joe Wright, starring Levi Miller, Hugh Jackman, Rooney Mara, and Garrett Hedlund. This is a reimagining of the classic tale of Peter Pan, where we actually get to see a brief look into his childhood of growing up in an all-boys home during World War II. Just a tad bit predictable, Peter and his buddies are the ones who are troublemakers around the house. And for whatever reason, there's whispers going around that the nuns are selling the kids off to Canada. It turns out it's not Canada, and they're actually just being abducted by flying pirates in the middle of the night. The pirates are taking the kids over to Neverland, and they're forced into slave labor by Blackbeard, played by Hugh Jackman, and he takes them to basically these work camps where they have to mine pixie dust. Hugh Jackman was actually really great as Blackbeard. You know, he's got that glorious fake beard going on. He was really hammy when he needed to be, and it really worked for this movie. It looked like he had a lot of fun doing this. Peter screws up on his first day, and he's sentenced to death by Blackbeard, so Blackbeard kicks him off the ship, and that's when he figures out he can fly. All throughout the movie, Peter's struggling to, learn how to fly, and he keeps thinking that it's a matter of, I need to believe in myself, even though when Blackbeard kicks him off, he mentions to him, hope you have happy thoughts. And, as an audience, we know that that's how Peter flies. And you're like, Peter, just think happy thoughts and fly! But that doesn't really happen. It happens towards the end, and he eventually figures it all out, and then he's the flying fairy boy. Peter befriends a young James Hook, who's played by Garrett Hedlund, and they have a partnership to go off and escape into Neverland and get out of the mines and to find Peter's mom. In Neverland, they find the natives, where you find Rooney Mara, who's playing Tiger Lily. Now, Peter and Hook are obviously trespassing, and they sentence him to death again. And they get through this really crazy trampoline UFC type fighting with the natives, and eventually they realize who Peter Pan is. This is where I started to maybe have a couple issues. It gets a little predictable with, it kind of beats you on the head with Peter. Peter Pan is the chosen one. He's the flying boy, and in this version, Peter is actually half fairy and half human. His father was a fairy king or prince or something like that, and his mother was a human. And Peter is destined to lead the fairies into victory against Blackbeard and all of the pirates. The classic giant gator did show up, and there's lots of hints of James Hook losing his hand to the gator, but it never actually happens, and it's a really small part of the movie. The climax of this film takes place in the fairy kingdom, where they have the ultimate showdown between Blackbeard, Tiger Lily, Hook, and Peter Pan. One thing that I think is really hard is to find really good child actors, and Levi Miller, I thought he did a pretty good job as Peter Pan. He was really likable. He was serviceable in this movie. Any problems I thought he maybe had probably come from the writing, which isn't really his fault. Jackman and Rooney Mara are the standouts of this movie. I definitely think they gave the best performances out of everyone there. Now, if there was one performance I was a little disappointed in, it would be Garrett Hedlund as James Hook. I kind of felt like Garrett Hedlund is kind of a discount Michael Fassbender. His performance was really spotty. Whenever he was interacting with Peter, I just thought, his delivery was really bad. It was really over the top, kind of overacted. But for whatever reason, the way he was written to interact with Tiger Lily was actually really good. Tiger Lily and James Hook actually had a bit of a Princess Leia and Han Solo kind of a romance, with him being an actual pirate and she's royalty, and she said she knows she shouldn't be with him, and there's kind of that flirting going on. They're not over the top of the romance. Nobody's saying they love you. There's no kissing, but there's obvious chemistry between James and Tiger Lily, and that I thought actually did work. Hook was definitely a likable enough character, but Garrett's performance just kind of killed it just a little bit. The pacing in this movie I did think was a little off, and like I said, some beats in this movie were a little predictable, and I wasn't a big fan of Peter being the whole chosen one. Also, one thing I really didn't like is that they kind of selectively chose when to use CGI people. Every now and then they would animate Peter and Hook, and it didn't really make any sense to me, because there were certain sequences where they could have just used the actors, but for whatever reason they animated them. The animation was good, but you could still tell, because they're people. And when you animate people, it's a lot easier to spot. It didn't really make any sense, and it does take you out of it just a little bit. A couple things this movie did have going for it, though. It had great set design, great production design, and the costumes were actually really cool. It had a very Circus Olay vibe to this movie, and it was very unique, very stylized, very colorful, and I thought that was done pretty cool. Also, this movie had a really fun, really adventurous, bombastic soundtrack that was it set the tone of the movie for being an adventure very well. It was very standout, I thought, and it worked for this movie, and it didn't just seem like background music. Overall, this was great escapism. It was a really fun adventure. They really make you feel like you're in Neverland, and it did have some great visuals. The story was okay enough. I'm going to give Pan a 7 out of 10. So guys, did you see this movie? What did you think? Let me know. And also, what is your favorite version of Peter Pan? I'm really interested to see how this movie goes over. You know, you have Hook and then the classic Disney movie, which honestly, I think I did enjoy this the most out of all three of them, but I don't really think that's saying much because the other movies didn't really do anything for me, but I thought this was a fun enough movie. Alright guys, this has been your Movie Fix. Be sure to subscribe for more movie news, movie reviews, and trailer reactions.